is the current president of the Western Alumni Association of Miami University, otherwise known as WAMU. And then we'll dive into your tales of possibly paranormal experiences at Peabody Hall. At the end of tonight's event, we will have popcorn and other snackies out on the porch for those of us who are here in person. Audrey, I'll hand it over to you for a moment.
Thank you, Jackie. Can everybody hear me? I'm having internet difficulties, so I, of course, use my interdisciplinary knowledge about changing course and making adjustments. I'm Audrey Boggs, Audrey Riddle when I was at Western, and I am the president of the Western Alumni at Miami University Alumni Association. And I am so happy to be here tonight and have all of you students with us and all the alums that are here to share stories and just kind of be together in community. It's so important over the last 18 months now. It's been so important to kind of reroute yourself and be in your community, even when it's remote like this and virtual at times. And so the Alumni Association this year, our goal is, and I apologize, I lost my voice this week, so I apologize that it's a little hoarse. But is that we want to try to build community, not only with other alums, but we also are trying to build community with you, the students at the Western, who are in the Western program, who are involved in the Western Center, who live on Western. It is so much of a part of us, the time that we spent in that place, that we want to try to connect with you, reconnect with each other, and really build this community of people that have this shared experience of Western. So we are going to hopefully have this be the first of many events that happen with us as the alums and the students and the center. And I'm really excited about tonight. We're going to share some great stories. As a reminder for everyone that's here, we are streaming this live on Facebook. So keep that in mind when you're telling your stories and sharing your experiences. And I'm going to then pass it back to Jackie. I think I can't pull up my program because my internet is being stupid. But I'm going to pass it back to Jackie, and I think we're going to kick off with some stories.
You are right, Audrey. Thank you. So just a quick note, too, to those of you that are joining us from Zoom World. We did try to stream this on Facebook Live, but we are having, technical difficulties. Perhaps Helen is already making her presence known tonight, maybe with displeasure at this event, I don't know. But we will be recording this. We are recording it right now, and we'll throw that up on the Western Center's YouTube page tomorrow. So we'll put a post on our Facebook page to let alum and other folks know that. Okay, so just a few things, as we said, just a couple of things we asked as you are sharing stories, both from Zoom World and in Leonard Theater. We've got a few folks that have bravely volunteered here already. So we hope that both alum and students would like to share stories. If you're physically here in Leonard tonight, we would ask that you step up to the mic to tell your story. And while telling your story, it's your choice if you want to keep your mask on or unmasked, because I think we have enough distance up here that is considered safe by university policy. Of course, when we're out in the theater, we want to keep our masks on. Each person, if you can, I know this is hard because we all love Peabody, if you could keep your story to 3 to 5 minutes long so that we can make sure everybody has an opportunity. And then finally, we would ask that everyone start their story with their name. For alum, we'd ask that you start your story with the year you graduated. And perhaps if you want to share what you're doing these days. For students, we'd ask that you start with your name, the year you are now, majors and interests, and if you live on Western's campus, and I'll remind you to. you don't remember all of that. Okay, we did get one story submission by video from an alum, Mark Musson, Dr. Mark Musson, Western alum, 2001. He is now the Director of Education at the Greater Cincinnati Homeless Coalition. And I thought it was a nice way to set the mood here. So we're going to cue that story up, share it through Zoom, and project it onto the screen.
And I promise me it's going to delete this because if someone finds out where I am, if they find out if they hear me. So, you know, you might not know who I am or anything about me, but one of my earliest memories was when my cousin died. She had just been born, and I must have been 4 or 5 years old at the most. And she visited me when I was asleep in my bedroom. And she told me that she died. And I went downstairs and I told my family, and they said, "Don't say that. Don't say that now." Back then, you know, a long distance call from California, it might take a couple hours before we hear from somebody. And a few hours later, we got the call. And I've had other people visit me when they passed. And even when I was in high school, I used to use a Ouija board. And we would talk to people, spirits that have passed, spirits that are around us at all times. And one time they said they were going to get us at midnight, especially my brother, because my brother, my best friend, and her sister. The 4 of us stood around the table at midnight, and when the clock hit midnight, my brother started screaming, my leg, and as it turned out, his leg was wet, and Spirit said they were going to get him at midnight, and it turned out that the dog under the table peed on my brother's leg. Who knows what made him do it, but I think it was a spirit. So by the time I got to Western, I already had some experience. I even had experience right that summer, right before I got there, where we were in a house that was an unsolved mysteries. And the spirits there took the viewfinder that we were using on the Ouija board, and as soon as we almost didn't even put our fingers on it, and it jumped off the table. And at that point, I said, I'm never going to use a Ouija board again. So by the time I got to Western, I knew that by the time I got to Western, I knew that the spirits weren't something to mess with. And people wanted to do Ouija and Peabody, and I just couldn't do it. I told them I'm not going to do it. When I saw that viewfinder fly off the table, I knew that we were messing with something very strong. So I don't even want to think about it because of all the spirits that are there in Leonard Theater and down in the green room and upstairs. And when I first got there, I heard stories of the thumping, the thuds. Things would fall off of the shelves and boom, boom, thud on the ground and then slide across the floor. I think it was the sliding across the floor that makes your hair stand up on the back of your neck. So I didn't mess with the Ouija board when I was there. But I did see the spirit of Helen Peabody. I ended up sleeping on the 4th floor. I had a guest student come in, a prospective student, and was sleeping in my room, and I ended up sleeping up on the 4th floor. And you know, when you go up to the 4th floor, you can hear the wind howling in those windows. And sometimes they even rattle up there. And I slept underneath one of the tables. And in the middle of the night, I awoke and I saw face to face, and I thought was Helen Peabody. And they say half of her body floats above and half below the floors because the floors have changed. And I just closed my eyes and said, this isn't, it's not right. There are also tales of the motorcycle ghost, which I saw as well in Oxford. So the summer after my first year, I did summer orientation staff, and we had a chance to go out to see the motorcycle ghost. And as you go out onto the country road, you notice it's dark all around. And of course, by the time we were out there in the middle of the summer with the summer orientation staff, it was, you know, almost shoulder high corn. So you can't really see too far out there. And the way the legend worked is you go to the old farmhouse, and it was abandoned at the time. And you would go to the farmhouse and you would flip your lights on the car onto the farmhouse and get out of the car and put your hands up and say, I believe, I believe, I believe. And repeating that 3 times, it would summon the motorcycle ghost and get back into the car, go back to the road, blink your lights again, and the light steadily, and then blinking into the distance coming towards you. And clear as day, we could see the light coming towards us. Now, I was with other orientation staff members, including the president of the student body. He got out of the car because he couldn't believe this light. Kind of a dull, orangish kind of light just streaking towards us. And as he got out of the car, saying this, that, and the other, I don't believe it, that light from the motorcycle ghost went directly through his chest and continued on its way around the corner. I saw that with my own eyes. That wasn't the only time that I saw something spooky around Oxford. In the woods behind Peabody, if you go late at night, you can hear all sorts of things. It might be calls of animals. It could be a ring of deer coming around. But there are also bioluminescent plants and waterways that do amazing things. So make sure you understand the reality is spirits are around us, nature is around us, and there are things that are unexplained. So I hope everyone has a great night. Just make sure you listen.
Okay, that got us off to a good start, I think. So for the folks joining us through Zoom World, if you could put in the chat, if you have a story to share, and then Sarah Franklin from Alumni Engagement will help me to keep track so we make sure that we're pulling everybody in who wants to share something. We're gonna come back tonight to Peabody. If I could ask a student who wants to come up and share a story. I know there were a few. Mark is hard to follow, no pressure. Everybody's experience is different. Yeah, come on up. All right. So my name is Ginny. Mine's Maxim. And we're both sophomores this year. And last year we lived in McFarland, but this year we're on Western in Beechwood Hall at the Honors College. But last year, I'm trying to remember when it was, but it was a little bit after Halloween. We were walking back up to McFarland, and there was a Ouija board just right outside the hall. Like shoved in a bush. It was so weird. And so our friend group jokingly was like, oh my gosh, like we should pick it up and we should like try to use it. So we picked up the Ouija board, and you know, we'd heard all the stories that Peabody's haunted this kind of area. And so we decided to come out to the Nature Theater out here, just here behind Peabody at about midnight. There was like frost on the ground, it was super cold, and we're both big believers in supernatural things, but a lot of our friends are like, none of that's real, we don't believe in any of it. But so some of them were like, I'm not even gonna mess with that. But a few of us went down into the Nature Theater, and we had like a couple candles out and light, and we sat there and we started to use the Ouija board to contact some spirits. And I've tried to use Ouija boards before, and I've never really had much luck. You know, maybe like, ooh, someone like jokingly pushes it, but the planchette, the little piece that moves, was like flying around the board. So, and was spelling out coherent names, words, places, and things. So we ended up contacting a spirit named Rudy.
And we talked to Rudy for a while, and he was telling us like his life story and everything. And he said that he went to Miami, and he told us the year that he graduated. So then we went to the library to look through yearbooks and stuff to try to see if we could find them.
And we didn't really find him, but we did find someone in the year. We didn't find a last name that matched.
Even when I was way younger, I definitely kind of felt, I always felt a little bit more in tune with, I guess, a sort of spiritual side, even though I didn't always know what it was. About 5 years ago, it kind of came to a peak. I actually got kind of possessed by a demon, not possessed per se, but haunted by a demon. And this does sound like a fake story, actually, but it is not. My best friend, Julia Vasquez, you can text her. She actually experienced, she came to spend the night one time. She actually never came back to my house after that. What she experienced that night was just like every other night for me. Sleep paralysis. She could hear and see a figure in the corner of my room, which started to scrape their finger along the wall, getting closer to my bed. Once it got to my bed, it started to yank the sheets off of my bed. Which she wasn't used to. She didn't know this was a thing. Well, I've been complaining about it. She thought it was a liar, though. So she wasn't yet trained to keep a death grip on your sheets while you're sleeping, like I was. So the sheet that she was sleeping under, through the same bed, you know, the sheet that she was sleeping under starts to get pulled off the bed slowly. And this was, you guys know, those little fleece Disney blankets, like the princess ones. I've got a Cars one too. Really nice blankets, not heavy enough to slide off of the bed on their own. So she was sleeping under one of those, starts sliding off. So she finally gives up on that blanket, moves under my blanket, hopes I don't notice or wake up. I did notice. I was just also trying not to move so as not to disturb the demon, because at that time I was still scared of it. Those blankets, however, did not move because I, you know, did have a death grip on them. I had learned that at that point. So that ended after about a year and a half. You know, great times. I look back on them with joy. But I do have enough experience to know what I'm talking about. So one time, I pretty much as soon as I got to Miami, I started researching the ghost stories involving it. Number one, the Peabody story. So there were a couple nights. The first one was me and my now roommate, Julia Vasquez. We decided we're gonna, you know, sneak into Peabody, but the door was unlocked, so was it even sneaking in? I don't think so. I think they're basically inviting us in. So we come into Peabody and we're like, oh wow, this is so cool. And there was nobody here. Like, this is like midnight. There was absolutely nobody in here. But for the story's sake, I'm gonna say it was about 8 o'clock p.m. And we were not doing anything wrong by being here. So we walk in. And there's this one hallway. If you walk in that main door up there, you look right to your right, I believe. There's a pretty much like 3 or 4 rooms connected, and you can go between the 3 of them. It was pitch black in those rooms. So what did we do? We said, wow, that's where we want to go. So we decided to go into those rooms. Got into the last one. Very creepy the whole time. There's like a little doll sitting on one of the, I guess it was like a table. So there's a little doll sitting there. I don't like to wear my glasses for some reason. They're just not, I just don't like to. And I can't wear contacts. They bother me. So I couldn't see very well. So I'm standing there and squinting at it. And I'm just standing there looking at it. And Julia's like frozen. And so she goes, dude, we gotta go. We gotta go. I'm like, what? And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, is that a doll? She's like, yeah, we gotta go. So we ended up leaving that room, going around to explore. The whole time it really did feel like someone was following us. Whether that's true or not, or we made up the footsteps we were hearing behind us, I don't know. But after a good point, we went up to the floor, all the way as high as the elevator would take us, got up there, looked into one of the creepy classrooms up there. It was a little bit too dark for our liking, we left. Came back a few days later with a couple of friends, my friend Annika over there, and a couple of dudes, But as the story goes, Helen Peabody hates men, like a lot of people do, including myself for the most part. So we get in here, and I go in the door, and it closes all the way behind me. My friend Annika gets in the door, closes all the way behind her. My friend Julia gets in the door, closes all the way behind her. My male friends standing outside, they go to come in, the door locked. I don't know if that was Helen or just dumb luck, but I'm just gonna go with it was Helen just for fun. So we end up getting that man. One of them gets separated from the group, ends up finding a random chessboard, sees one of the chess pieces move, comes back to us. Because again, nobody else in there. It was 8:00 p.m. We're gonna say again, but so definitely creepy. And then we go up to the third floor. Everybody knows how orbs usually indicate some type of supernatural thing, but whether you believe it or not, that's what it said. We get up to that same classroom, obviously, because why not? We get up there. I'm the first one in the door. I look. What do I see? An orb just floating across the room and disappearing in the middle. Now, again, this is pretty late at night. There's no cars really going across, going up by Peabody, and they're definitely not going to see the light on the fourth floor or third floor. I don't actually know. So you're definitely not going to see the light. And then there was, how smart boards you can write on them? It was kind of like that, but in red ink, and there was nobody up there, and the computer was turned off. So I'm not really sure how that worked. I've also had a couple run-ins with the ghost biker. I've pretty much gone and begged him to come out and see us. The closest we've gotten was, we're up there in my friend's Tesla, and his lights turn off automatically when they see another car coming. We go up there, we're like, crap, this is like our fourth time doing it, really hoping for something. We go up there and we see, we flash our lights, whatever. I didn't know we had to say I believe, so now I'm going to have to go back. See if that one works. I'll report what happened. But we go up there, and so we're like, crap, whatever. So we go to leave, and as we're driving towards that curve, all of a sudden, the lights dim as if there's another car coming. But again, it's 8:00 at night. Although we weren't trespassing now, so it was midnight, about 1:00 actually. The lights dim, and we're like, shit, this is not good. Didn't actually see anything. I mean, if you really want to believe, we might have seen a light, but it could have just been a house light. We've also seen our fair share of things in the woods. I know me and my friend Annika for fun. It's not only scary being, I'm 18, an 18-year-old girl walking around a college campus at night alone. That's pretty scary. But if you go into the woods, you get a whole other supernatural aspect. Anyone know about some, I'm not going to say the names because I don't want to bring this, bad luck on myself, Native American, entities. You can't really say the name or else we're going to get you. Those type of things. I think I may have probably seen one out there. You always hear things, you always see things, and you just pretend they're not there as to not, piss yourself. There was also another time it could have been some freaky dude. But we're coming up, do you know the hill to Ditmore Lot? The awful one that you have to walk up if you want to park your car there? I'm walking down that hill, and then we go all the way back up. All of a sudden, my friend Julia looks up because she hears whispering. There's a dude just standing up there. So we start sprinting. Well, she does, and I realize that Julia knows I hate running. If she's running that fast for no reason and I'm there, then I should probably be running too. So I start running, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep walking. We go to, what's it called? The gardens up by, up north. There's the gardens, what's it called? By Garden Commons, like behind it. Formal Gardens, thank you. I'm brain far. Anyway, we go up there. My friend Julie brought this tiny little stick for defense, obviously, because this is going to protect you against, the kidnapper on the hill. So she's got this stick she's holding like this, and it's hanging out of her hand this way. All of a sudden, we're walking through, and it's pitch black. We can't see anything. I've got my flashlight on, whatever. She's holding it here. There's no one else in there. She feels a tug on it. And then she just is like, whatever. She looks. There's nothing there. Then it gets ripped out of her hand, and she starts running again, praying under her breath. There was no cursing, which was actually surprising, just prayers. So that's how you know she was really scared. When you have to bring Jesus into it, that's probably not a good thing. But yeah, I mean, this is my second year here, and I haven't really had too much happen yet. But I also haven't been as adventurous as last year. So I'm hoping my stories will only multiply as the years go on. Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and move to the alum on Zoom. Sarah, do you have a name? Looking for any alum on Zoom that want to share a story? If not, we can move to another student. I'll wait for Sarah to give me the yay or nay either way.
Audrey's going to share hers.
Okay, all right. Audrey Box is going to share her story.
So I, again, apologize because I lost my voice. I should have recorded this and have been prepared like a week ago, but I'm Western, so I'm leaving things to the last minute. And of course, don't have my voice. So I have not necessarily like a spooky story, but I graduated in 2010. So my freshman year, which would have been in 2006, my roommate and I hooked up our wireless printer in our room. We thought, you know, this is awesome. We have our wireless printer and we're not going to have to go to, you know, the lab and print our stuff. And for whatever reason, every time we tried to print, it never printed actually what we printed out or what we wanted to print. It printed out these weird pieces of paper with these weird symbols and these weird, like, they weren't hieroglyphics, but like, you know, those symbols that you have on the computer and, you know, it was, you know, I don't know what they're called. It escapes me, but we tried to print and it would never print. And one day, so when I was at Peabody, the girls lived on the second floor, the boys lived on the third floor. And a couple days after, you know, we would try to print something, we'd go up one time, we went up to one of the guys' rooms and on the third floor, and we noticed like our paper sitting on their printer. And we said, what is that? And they're like, oh, this randomly came out of our printer a couple days ago. And so now it could have been the wonderful world of wireless interfacing and printers, but we thought it was really creepy that our papers ended up on somebody else's printer in Peabody Hall. And so ever since that incident, whenever we got quirky printing, we would kind of go through the halls and be like, anyone have our papers? Anyone have our papers? Because we didn't know who they were going to print to. And so that's my kind of spooky story about, I don't know if it was Helen. I don't know who it was. Maybe Helen was trying to connect us to the boys on the third floor. She was trying to tell us something. I don't know. But that was kind of our, we didn't have typewriters, Beth. We had the generations that span in Peabody. I once walked down the hall and I said, what is this miniature room in here? And they're like, oh, that used to be the typing room. And I said, you had to sit in this little minuscule closet in the hallway to use your typewriter because you didn't want to keep people up at night. but yeah, wingdings. Thank you, Leslie. They were wingdings and it was super random. But that was my supernatural experience at Peabody.
Thank you, Audrey. Do we have another story from a student? Yeah, come on up. Remember, we're looking for 3 to 5 minutes.
All right, so my name is Jonathan Myro. I'm a senior. I'm a media and culture and anthropology double major with a creative writing minor. And I started off in Tappan when I transferred here from Sinclair, but recently I moved to Appridge. And I've only been in this building a few times. But anyway, so my supernatural experience was my sophomore year of high school. I was at a Halloween party with friends and we decided to use a Ouija board. And we met some interesting spirits. One, I remember we talked to this ghost named Edgar, and he's what I refer to as a half liar. We'd ask him a question, he'd say no. Then we'd ask him, are you lying? He'd say yes. And another weird experience I had during this was, I'm not sure if this was supernatural or just because it was cold out, but I had a candle in my hand. It leaked on me 3 times, and I only felt it once. And the most interesting thing about it was the only time I felt it was the 3rd time. And now this is just what I heard, but I actually heard that they contacted the devil himself, and there was a girl there named Michelle, which apparently translates to "for God." And they asked, "Are you going to come for her?" He said, "Maybe." That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a story from alumni Diane.
Hi, everybody. I'll go ahead and share this story. I know of a couple of stories, but my sophomore year roommate, Beth Dixon, is somewhere on Zoom, and she might want to share the one that happened to her. So I'm going to share a story that happened to my friend Suzanne, who's not with us on Zoom tonight, but I graduated in '86, and I lived for 2 years in Peabody Hall. And having spent some time with the actual Western College alumni, I've come to call Peabody Peabody, because that's how they have said it. And I feel better saying that now. But when I was living there, we called it Peabody. And my friend Suzanne was a roommate with my friend Marcy on the 3rd floor. Audrey, when we were there, it was switched. The women were on the 3rd floor and the men were on the 2nd floor. And you'd have to know Suzanne to know how practical and down to earth she is, and how unlikely to make up things or exaggerate. So Suzanne told us the story of being in the room studying. She was very conscientious in school. And in those rooms, if any of you have ever been in the dorm rooms up in Peabody, the closets are really big. They don't have doors. So a lot of people would hang curtains over the closet. And the rooms are big and it's old, and the hallways are huge. So we could have huge dance parties in those hallways. It was really a good place to live. So she was sitting in her room. They had a cloth curtain over the closet, and she looked up, and a big black dog walked out of the closet. Just walked and stood there. And as she was looking up and surprised to see this dog, a man's hand came out from the curtain and pulled the dog back into the closet. And she didn't hear anything. And she's a really, really brave person. So a few minutes later, she got up the nerve to get up and pull the curtains open, and there was no one there. And she was pretty freaked out by it. So she told us about it. And what I remember is that Suzanne and someone else went to the Alumni Association and shared the story. And they were told that in one of the fires, there have been several, but in one of the fires, there was a young man with his dog visiting one of the women. And there was a fire, and he would have gotten in trouble if he had left with the fire drill. And so he didn't leave, and he and the dog were killed. So Suzanne saw something. And so if you go to the 3rd floor in Peabody, if you are looking toward the road, it's in the wing to the right, one of the first rooms to the right, so the room's view is over into the courtyard. So I don't know if any of my fellow alum friends have other details of that, but that has always stuck with me. And you're lucky to be in Peabody right now. We all loved it there. So say hello to the building for us.
Thank you, Diane. I have not heard the dog ghost story yet, but I saw a bunch of chats pop up from your colleagues that said that they had heard that story. Students, have you heard the dog story yet? Lots of them. Well, now you know where it's at. Okay, do we have any or more students that would like to share a story? Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Bug. I'm a junior Western major. Woo! Okay. So I grew up in a haunted house, and I lived there up until I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I wrote some notes while they were talking. I was listening to comments, but just like keep it short, whatever. So I have two younger brothers and a sister. And when my brothers were like too little to be in school and my sister and me were, my mom would know every day what time it was like time to go to come get us because they'd be walking upstairs at like the same time. And it got to the point where my littlest brother was a toddler and he could like speak and he was like, who's upstairs? And she's like, oh, don't worry about it, nothing. And like would just like know it was time to come get us. And then my parents got divorced, which I think stirred up some energy in the house. So I was reading a book, a Junie B. Jones book, in my bedroom, and I saw like someone standing, like I was reading and I could see them and I looked and they were gone. So I was way too scared to sleep in my room anymore. So I slept on the floor outside of my little brother's bedroom because there was like too small room for me to sleep in there on the floor. And one night I heard someone come up the stairs and literally walk around me. And like we were all aware that like stuff happened in this house and we just had to like deal with it kind of. And I felt so dumb because I literally like stereotypical pulled the covers over my head and just laid there. And while I was doing it, I was like, this is so dumb. But like I couldn't do anything else. But somehow I made it through. And then one time I was doing homework in my bedroom upstairs alone again. I never learned. And I literally heard with my own ears a little girl say, "Mommy?" And I was like, oh no. I was like in 4th grade. I'm the youngest girl that lives there. I was like, that, no. And we don't call my mom that. We always call her mom. So at this point, my bio dad had moved out. So on the weekends, we would all go to his house to like visit him, whatever. And my mom told me like in private, like, don't call your brothers, don't scare them. But when you guys aren't here, I hear her too. And sometimes I see her. And I was like, ah! And that was really scary. But then we moved out, whatever. Nothing happened at the house my mom lives at now. I moved here and I now live off campus because I'm old. But my freshman year, I did live here on the 3rd floor. And it wasn't like that scary because Helen only doesn't like men. So, but we would like hear like things moving in our bedroom at a roommate. And like papers would move sometimes, like creaks would happen, almost like someone was walking. And we would just be like, okay. And like lights would flick, whatever. Scary, typical stuff. And we would hear people like walking of like, I just think of the 4th floor as a classroom because that's like what it is. But we hear people walking up there. And one time, I definitely did not go into the Peabody attic my freshman year before they locked it. And there's just like, I understand why they locked it, it's not safe. But it was just like some boards you could walk on that like went deeper into it. And there was just a chair sitting there open, like facing you right underneath the light. And I was like, yeah, so this was really scary. Thanks. All right, thanks, Bug. We've got time for a couple more. We're getting to the 8:30 hour. Sarah, do we have anybody on Zoom?
Yeah, not just yet. Do you want to let another student know?
We do have a couple of alum here with us tonight. And if you would like to come and share one of your stories, that would be great. And I forget your name. Can you tell me again? Thank you. No worries. Thank you.
Hi, my name was Paula Stewart when I went here. It's Paula Stewart Ditko. I was a class of 2000 from Western. And I focused in American Studies, American History, and Field Studies. And am I doing anything with that now? No. But I lived in Peabody for 3 years, my freshman, sophomore, junior year. And I was the first class to get it back in the building when they had just renovated it. So that, if anybody knows anything about paranormal, renovation and ghosts go hand in hand. So some things were definitely just quirks in the building. Like we had air conditioning. Like that was the first time there was air conditioning in this building. And the other cool thing was it wasn't Wi-Fi, but we were wired for internet. We didn't have to dial up. We were like the coolest building on the entire campus where there was like no dial up. But I just had like a few little things happen. Nothing really crazy happened. My freshman year, we flipped floors. So I lived second, third, second, and then my first year I was on the second floor. My sister was taking a picture of me down the hallway. I was standing outside my room, and my sister had actually lived in Peabody, so she was really excited to be back. So she took a picture, and when she developed it, the actual film, there was this like burst of light that went from like my head down to the feet. So, I mean, a lot of people were instantly like, oh, that's a ghost, oh, that's really cool. But it actually had someone analyze it and saying it was probably just like a flare of the flash. So that was a bummer. The real experience I think I had, I was like super sick, and I went to class and I came back and I was super like freezing. I was shaking. I cranked the heat up in my room because we had control of the heat. I don't know if we still have that or not. Okay, well, we had control of the heat, and I would crank that sucker up. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm by myself, and there's no one else in the room. And all of a sudden, the room goes really, really, really super cold. Like, I'm breathing, and I can, like, literally see my, like, breath coming out. It was that freaking cold in the room. And I'm just, like, Lydia, I'm, like, my teeth are chattering, and I'm, like, oh, my God, I should get out of bed. I should take some Tylenol. And back in the day, we used to have CDs and CD cases. And I had this really cool carousel thing that you would clip your little CD cases into, and you would spin around. It started spinning right underneath my bed. Like I'm laying there, like hearing the little, and it would make a little noise, like ting, 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 ting. Yeah, so I don't think it was the fever, but I really hope it was Miss Peabody coming in to check and see if I was okay because I was sick. And then really super fast, my best friend, she lived on the other side, and I don't know if any of the alumni up there will know. There was like a room called, I think it was called like the suicide room. It was the room that was kind of closest to, like, because it's a U shape. So it was like kind of in the corner, but when you open the window, it looked right into the wall. Like you had no view, you had to like look over and down to see any of the courtyard back here. And allegedly there was a student who was depressed and she jumped out that window. And so my friend, a couple times throughout her years here, she would wake up and she would have like voices like waking her up, like she would be just in that kind of state coming out of sleep, and someone would wake her up. There's a couple times, and when she was in that room, she woke up to the sound of a party, like loud music and lots of people talking, and she told me that a couple times that happened. So she actually moved out of that room. She only lasted in that room semester. She's like, I need to sleep. She's like, I'm a freshman, I need to get sleep or I'm gonna fail out. So she got out of that room and everything was okay when she got out. So that's it. That's all I have to talk about.
I've not heard of that one yet either. All right, just a quick check in the room. I know we have one more alum on Zoom that wants to share. Is there another student? I am not seeing. Say that again, Carol.
Question. What if it's not necessarily a ghost by mice and a ghost for someone else?
Sure. Come on down, Carolyn. Yeah, let's listen. And then after Carolyn, we'll wrap it up with one of our alums on Zoom, and then we'll be out on the porch. There you go.
Hello, I'm Carolyn. I'm one of the workers down in the Western Center. And my sophomore year, I was working on Halloween all by myself in the building. Fun, right? So I'm just sitting there minding my own business. No one comes into the center at night. It's like 7 or something. And I hear a blood-curdling scream. I freak out because to my knowledge, everyone's out partying. Why is there a blood-curdling scream? So as a worker, I react. And I jump out of my chair to go figure out where this noise is coming from. And I realize it's coming from this door we have in the center that is always just there, connects to another classroom. I'm like, okay. So I go to open it, and there were desks shoved in front of it, but I opened it far enough to see that there were kids in there watching a horror movie. But the thing is, I closed the door quickly and slammed it, so I probably scared them because no one else came into the center and be like, was that you? It was, I'd be like, no. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure I was a ghost for someone watching a horror movie that night.
Yeah, what you mean now? All right, let's switch to Zoom. What is the alum thing? Erica, you've got the floor, and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh gosh, okay. I didn't know I was closing tonight, so hopefully this is good. My name's Erica. I am Western class of 05. Please don't do math. So I was in Maryline my freshman year, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was a great dorm. And then I was in McKee the rest of my time. And my boyfriend was in Peabody. So he's my college sweetheart. We dated for a long time. So I used to go visit him. And he was kind of, I don't know, he had a rule where I couldn't spend the night on school nights. And it was such a lame rule. And needless to say, we did not work out and become a Miami merger. But he had this rule. And so I used to, we go up and, you know, do our dates, have fun. And then I would leave and I'd usually go down the first floor. And there should still be that big portrait of Helen Peabody up there. So I passed Helen's portrait and just feel judgment. So whatever I was doing, she knew. And I hated walking past her and I couldn't make eye contact with her. She knew. And I just hated it. So I started going down the ground floor and that was a little bit easier than walking past her. So, and then you'd walk past all those trees and woods and they're just full of eyes from all of the deer that live in Western, just, you know, dozens of eyes watching you walk back to McKee, which is also creepy. But the moral of the story is no matter what you do, Helen knows. So be careful when you walk past her portrait.
Okay, so I know we're at time. So I'm going to offer a quick option. We have a very rare opportunity here. We have a lot of alum from a lot of different times at Miami, and I think we've all really enjoyed like hearing from students and alum and seeing the similarities still in some ways of the experience in the space. So I think some of the alum are open to maybe having a chat with students, like question answer about what folks are doing now, more experiences from back then, whatever you like. But we also, for those students that are interested in snacks now, instead of snacks later, they can head to the porch and get snacks. And we'll officially close out the event. But then those of you who want to stay to chat with alum, we'll make a setup in here that will make that possible for you. So the official closing tonight is thank you to everybody who shared a story and who came to hang out. And listen to stories. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Audrey from WAMU and all of the alum who joined us both in person and on Zoom. Thank you to the students who came here on a Thursday night, a notorious party night at Miami. Joined us here instead for some great ghost stories. Thank you to Sarah Franklin and Emily Lefevre, who really did a lot of work helping us set this up technologically and logistically from the Alumni Engagement Office. Thank you, Matea, who is the RD in Peabody Hall now, who may hear all sorts of student experiences. Thank you for helping us to coordinate this. And just know that if you're on Western campus, if you are a Western major, if you're in Peabody Hall, you are part of this really long, very cool legacy of folks that have been here for over a century and a half before you. So, thank you very much.
Pumpkin. Hey, Jackie, I have one more to tell if I can. Oh, wow, I pop up really big when I talk.
So I will let the folks in the room manage however you need to manage yourselves at 8:30. But yes, Audrey, go for it.
So Irene, I think, is lingering in the Alan Kalish realm out there. But she shared a story with me that reminded me of a story that I heard at Western. And I think it's, as Jackie already spoke to, really interesting hearing stories from people that lived in Peabody, you know, a couple of years, just a few years before I did, and how these stories continually reappear year after year, may I say decade after decade. And Irene reminded me of a story. I think she's on there with Alan Kalish. I think she's hiding or lurking, as she might say. But of this story about, so Peabody's burned down fully twice and been rebuilt. And so when you see ghosts in Peabody Hall, there have been stories shared that you only see either the top half or the bottom half of a ghost, depending on what floor you're on. Because when Peabody was rebuilt in its current structure, they didn't line the floors up correctly. So the ghosts who have died walk on the floors that they know. And so you either see the head or the bottom because they don't line up correctly. So I remember hearing that. I did not experience it, but I remember hearing that story when I was at Peabody, and Irene reminded me of it today. And I was hoping she would share it, but she's lurking. And I also heard about the one on the corner with the brick wall, the window facing the brick wall. That was definitely a story that there were architecture students that lived in that room when I was there, and they would hear super creepy things in that room at times. I never experienced it again, but I would definitely hear it. And I do have to say, this was an amazing opportunity to kind of just relive some of the stories that I even forgot when I was at Western. And I'm so excited that we did this as the Western Alumni Association. And I do hope that we continue to share stories, maybe not only spooky stories, but real, experiences. And I don't think when I shared my story, I shared that I graduated in 2010, and then I worked for Western for 3 years after that. And so I lived at Peabody for 5.5 years. I might have a record. I don't know. But I lived in Peabody for 5.5 years. And the experiences and the stories that I have to share with that time has been incredible. And I would love it if any students have any questions for us. I currently am in real estate, not anything to do with what I did at Miami. I was in interactive media studies, museums, and education. And then I went and worked for a Western alum at Ohio State, Alan Kalish. I worked for him for a while. We got connected as alums. I was a student at Miami and he was an alum, and we got connected and stayed in touch. And I ended up with a job with him. And so on that note, I'd love to open it up to students. If you guys have questions or anything, interest-wise, just Peabody, Western-wise, or anything.
We're gonna turn the lights on for the question and answer portion. So it is going to be a little jarring, but if anyone has a question, feel free to come on down and chat with the alum. Oh, and feel free to take pumpkins from the stage. Free pumpkins. Audrey, that was a great story on how the connection can happen, alumni to alumni.
I think you switched them.
Yeah. All right.
No one wants to talk with us. I get it. It's okay.
It's not you.
We can't compete with snacks on the porch. We'd be
I
out
know.
there too. I'd be
I
out
am
there
happy to
too.
say I bought that popcorn machine when I worked there, and I'm really glad to see that it is still being used, because I had to write a really good rationale as to why we needed a popcorn machine.
Way to go.
So I'm really glad.
This was great. Thanks everybody for showing up. It's just nice to see people's faces and people's names and just be reminded. It was a great time.
Do we have a question?
Oh no, my name's Matea. I'm the graduate RD in Peabody and the Key. And so whoever said they were in the Key, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was there too. But I just wanted to say thank you. Oh, it's so weird. I don't know. I'm just gonna look at y'all. But I just want to say thank you so much. I love alumni. I like going back to my undergrad and talking to them, so I really appreciate you taking the time and listening to our undergrads now and sharing your stories. And so I just want to say thank you and I appreciate you all. And I hope we can do this again next year. This was really fun.
Yeah.
And this was like the biggest turnout of like I think any event we've had for all the residents. So like I'm definitely gonna brag. So thank you all. But I hope you all have a good night and thank you.
That's awesome.
I gotta go to my shop.
Hey folks, I'm sorry if I ruined this by having snacks on the porch. I was thinking choice, but I should know better than that with 20-year-olds.
No, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing. Yeah.
I brought Cheez-Its with me because I knew I needed a snack during the period. So, no,
I thought it was really wonderful. Audrey, thank you.
I heard 51 students, which is fantastic. That's fantastic.
This is the largest post-COVID event for Western's program or Western Center. So this is a great success.
Well, let's sign it up. We'll do it again next year. And I want to, I know the students have left, but the alums have not. And I want to thank Laura Dobbins because she put a marketing campaign together to make sure that the alums would actually show up. And she did a great job. And we had a lot of alums not only register, but actually show up, which that's two different things we've learned. You can register and still not show up. So really, Laura, thank you so much for everything that you did for this event, and Jackie and Billy and everybody. This was great. I am just so filled with just, like Western happiness that I saw students in Leonard Theater, and the stories just were great. And hopefully this is the start of many events to come. So thank you. And I so appreciate everyone's time and energy.
Yeah, in-person events will be in our future.
We hope so, right?
We hope so.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
Have a
great night.
Good night.
Good night.